Let's do it. I'm pumped. Okay. Yeah, I just like to sit up here and, just play it cool, have conversation.
And I'm sorry to interrupt that, but thanks for joining us. And I wanted to ask you, obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyes on social justice as this season begins, and it seems like the NFL is taking a very different stance on that. And I'm just wondering, in your eyes, what can all of us do, but specifically, what can professional athletes do to sort of make this more than a feel-good moment and actually use this moment of visibility to kind of gain some momentum on important issues?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever consider it a feel-good moment. Dealing with the issues that we're dealing with, and the death, and the prosecution, and the inequalities that people of color have dealt with, for a long time in this country. But I think as professional athletes, and just as human beings who have dealt with the inequities, and whether it's police brutality or the problems in the workplace, or just racism in general. It hasn't gone anywhere in this country, and so I think as athletes and people who've dealt with it, it's our job to just continue the conversation and continue to shed light on issues that most people don't have to deal with. There are a lot of people in this country who don't have to deal with police brutality or racism or anything of the sort. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, and they cheer for their favorite athletes regardless of what they look like or what their background is. And I think if they saw those human beings and heard their stories and heard the things that they've dealt with, growing up on a day-to-day basis, there would be some sympathy and empathy there, and have people, kind of compel people to go out and do something about it and make a difference. And I think obviously athletes have always tried a lot of athletes have gone out and made differences in their communities and tried their best to be philanthropists. And this is another opportunity to give these guys a platform to show who they are and to make a difference.
Richard, in the big picture, what does it mean for the Cardinals and the offense and the challenge that you guys face in having them bring over DeAndre Hopkins and pairing him with Larry Fitzgerald and all the other guys they have as pass catchers there?
Well, he's obviously an incredible talent, as is Larry, and they have a good offense. They have a good coordinator in Cliff Kingsbury. And so it presents an enormous challenge. We've been preparing for him all week. We're confident in our game plan, but obviously out there, it's going to be a dogfight, and we expect that. He fights every play, every down. He's earned everything that he's gotten, and that's what you need to prepare for. You need to prepare for a down in, down out fight. And they got better. They got a lot better as a football team when they brought him in. And obviously they sacrificed some things to get him. But he's one of those players that's a generational, and you got to do something to get something.
Richard, in terms of the social justice stuff, have there been conversations about potentially boycotting a game? And for you personally, how would you balance maybe the conflicting ideas of boycotting a game and then given how important a loss could be for the season if it came down to that?
There honestly hasn't been a ton of conversations like that in our locker room. I have had conversations with other players, who've echoed those thoughts about that potential. For me, it just has to make sense. And if you told me that boycotting an NFL National Football League game would stop police brutality and stop the injustices that people of color deal with, then I would be all for it. I'd say we need to miss seasons, we need to miss the game, we need to stop it now. But I don't think, in my personal opinion, I don't see how missing a football game is gonna keep police from killing black people, unarmed black people. I don't see that as the solution, honestly. I think I wish I had the solution. I wish there was something I could say right now to stop it. I wish I could take those bullets out of the people, who were killed. I wish I could, George Floyd was still here. I wish we could go back and train those officers better. I wish we could do something different, but we can't, and I think that's where we need to find a better solution. I think people are putting too much onus on saying, hey, sports, stop our problems, and it's like, hey, this can only go so far. If we miss 10 games, does that stop the problem? Does that solve it? Does that get something done? Do we make those kind of shots? Do we make those kind of calls? I don't think we do. And I think until we find the root of the problem, I think we're just sugarcoating it. We're just glazing over. We're just trying to find an easy answer. And the easy answer is to say, hey, sports, stop, till we find a solution. That doesn't change it. That doesn't stop the problem.
Hey, Richard, after George got his contract extension, you sent out a tweet, congratulating him, but you also mentioned he's a great teammate to learn from. At this stage of your career, I think people always assume that you're the guy doing the teaching, not necessarily doing the learning. I'm curious, what are things that you learn and take away from younger teammates that maybe people don't realize that you can still add to your game?
It's hard for me to answer that so directly and so intricately because there's so much I learn from him day in, day out. Even the way he approaches practice every day with the same energy, the same conviction, the same detail. It's the moment you stop learning, the moment you stop being open to learning, the moment you stop accepting, teaching and coaching, is the moment you should be done because you're not getting better and you're about to get passed up. If this is an everlasting race, in sports to get better and to grow and to elevate, the moment you stop learning, you stop elevating. And so there are guys on the practice squad that I have questions for. I say, hey, what did you see on this? Because they had great reads on the play, or they made a fantastic play, or they freaking got in the hip pocket and they showed me something that I hadn't seen. That's the cool thing about football. You're always seeing something new. You're always seeing something you've never seen before. And you can watch this game for 100 years and you'll be like, man, I've never seen a guy do that. And so I will never be one to pretend like I have all the answers or I have it all figured out and I can never grow and I can never get better because that'd be foolish. I'd be a fool to ever say that. And so when I say that, I mean it most genuinely and most wholeheartedly that I'm forever learning because I think that that's the only way I can get better. That's the only way I can elevate. That's the only way I can evolve in my game. And so a guy like George Kittle, who's obviously at the top of his game right now, has a ton to offer. And a ton of intricacies that I've never played the tight end position, but I can pick his brain and find out things that he knows and try to elevate my game. So when I'm guarding a tight end, I know what they're thinking.
Hey, Richard, you're a 32-year-old cornerback, so there's always talk about, when you're going to totally fall apart and all that.
Right.
But did you get hopefully this makes sense. When you were a 30-year-old cornerback, you were kind of you were dealing with, two kind of bum Achilles coming up the surgeries. I was wondering, did you maybe get some insight into, what it could be when you do, really lose a couple of steps? And did it give you confidence that should you choose to do so, you could continue to play when you're 35, 36?
Yes, it did. It did, especially throughout the rehab process. It gave me, it forced me to find other ways to get the job done. And when I was still coming back throughout training camp, when my legs weren't under me, when I wasn't getting power out of my legs that I needed because my Achilles wasn't totally cured and healed, I felt like I had to adjust. And it gave me confidence because I was still able to get to some of the spots. Now, it was a lot more difficult to get to those spots, and it was a lot more difficult to make the plays, but it wasn't impossible. And I feel like once it's impossible, then, you got to hang the cleats up and you got to be done because there's a certain standard that you have for yourself. There's a certain standard I play at, and it's a certain expectation that I have for myself. If I'm going to go out there and strap up the cleats and stand out there and be a cornerback for this football team, I expect myself to play at a certain level. And if I play at anything other than that level, there's no reason for me to play. So I do believe that I have good years left in me. I'm only going to play 3 after this. That's what the wife told me. So I don't call any shots after that. So 3 years after this, if the good San Francisco 49ers would love to keep me on this ball club, I'd love to be here. But after that, then I'm going to go into the booth.
Richard, it's been such an eventful offseason, beginning with the CBA, which you were a big part of in February, right up until this week with all the fires. I mean, when you take the pulse of your team, your teammates, what do you find? I mean, how are they right now, just a few days before the start of this season?
I'd say they're locked in. I'd say it's been a very difficult, as you pointed out, off season with everything that's going on. CBA negotiations, obviously COVID-19, lives lost, and the uncertainty, the anxiety that it's given everyone. So once again, you have to give thanks to all the essential workers out there. Thank you to all the people out there fighting the fires, for us throughout the nation, especially on the West Coast in Oregon and Washington and in California. But it's football has given them a sense of normalcy, I think. And that's what you see when guys come into the building. You see a routine, you see a calmness because of the routine. I think that's something that's missed, and I think that's what people get through sports, through watching sports, a sense of normalcy, a sense of, hey, everything's all right. This is giving me a familiar feeling, and I don't know what the chemical process is, but I'm sure there's serotonin working its way around people's brain when they get into a routine and get to see things that they're familiar with. They get to cheer for their favorite team, their favorite player. It allows them to check out of the reality for a little while, to check out of the stresses of everyday lives. And not that, that this sport is more serious than anything else. And, that's a real feeling or that's the best case scenario. But I think that's the vibe I get from my teammates is that this is a sense of normalcy, and it's giving them clear-headedness, and I think we're ready to play.
Richard, Bosa said yesterday that you guys are better prepared to face a mobile quarterback this season. What is it that's different about your preparation this season, or what you guys have done, or how you guys are set up that helps you be better prepared to face someone like Kyler?
Well, we got the tape. You go into the situation, and it's not just a mobile quarterback; it's a different system. Cliff Kingsbury's system is different than a lot of NFL systems, and obviously he adjusted throughout the season and moved towards a more NFL-ready offense. But there was some unpredictability about what he did and the way they maneuvered, and so we had to adjust on the fly. One week we played him on a Thursday and didn't have a time to prepare, and then the next week we were just kind of beat up. Quan Alexander wasn't playing; a few guys were beat up and were playing out of position. And I think to have the training camp to prepare for the offense, I think we're much better prepared. We got our guys, and we're still going to make adjustments on the fly. There's still things that they'll present that we haven't seen. And we just have to this is a game of adjustments, and we have to be prepared for that. But I think having played them twice last year and understanding what he can do well, we have a better bead on what we need to do to stop him.
Hey, Richard, expanding on the discussion that you had about being a student of the game, learning from a guy like George Kittle. I know you watch a ton of film. On the other side of this matchup last year, we saw George go up against Budda Baker, a much smaller defensive back. Is there anything that you can glean from George's game or from Budda's game when two guys with such different body types square off in the slot like that?
Well, Budda Baker is just a kamikaze, man. He's everywhere at the same time. I mean, he's one of the hardest playing football players, and he plays like a giant. So I think you have to take size out of that equation, and it's more of a chess match, of positioning and understanding of route concepts and things of that nature, because regardless of how what his size says on paper, he makes every play that he needs to make, and he's in position majority of the time. He led the league in solo tackles, so I think in that sense, you got to take the size out of it. I think that it's just a matchup between two really good football players, and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some anytime you have that situation happen. Similar to what Tyrann Mathieu is, but Tyrann's more of he's more of a wild card in terms of how he moves and how they use him in Kansas City. But Budda's everywhere. He's tackling, he's making plays sideline to sideline. So I think our offense always has to be aware of where he is, just like their defense has to be aware of where George Kittle is.
Last one, guys.
Yeah, hi, Richard. Sorry to pry into your business or career plans again, but have you represented yourself again through negotiations with the Niners? Where do things stand in terms of a possible extension? And did you have any help with DeAndre Hopkins negotiating his own deal with the Texans?
I had no say so or no help with Hop's deal, but he negotiated himself an outstanding deal, and I think it's just just like Bobby Wagner's deal that he negotiated as the highest paid middle linebacker in football. It just goes to show players it's not for everybody, but for guys with the leverage and guys with the wherewithal and understanding of what their value, I think it's possible. These guys save themselves probably $1 million a year negotiating it themselves, and that's a ton of money for anyone, and I think it's just about taking the onus and the responsibility for your own lives, and I think that's a huge testament to those men and every guy that's negotiated his own deal. There's definitely a place for agents, and guys need agents. There are guys out there who aren't as comfortable in that space and need some guidance and need somebody to go out there and fight for them and don't want to have the awkward conversations with the general manager or the president of the team. But I think there is a space for guys to go out there and take onus and be the leaders and the men and the businessmen that I know they are, and obviously this game has a lot more businessmen out there than people think, and this is another example. But in terms of my negotiations with the Niners, we've had talks, but obviously when you're representing yourself, you kind of have to focus on the season when the season comes. So if anything changes throughout that, I'm sure they'll be the first to let you guys know. Thank you, Richard. Thank you.